and welcome to this month's ID update. For the first time in a long time, we are experimenting with putting this out onto LinkedIn. It's gone very well so far. I've managed to post a comment across 2 lines rather than 1. So that's a cracking start to our return to LinkedIn. Whether you're joining us there or on YouTube, thank you for spending some time with us this evening or this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you are. Heidi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's cloudy and dreary here in Cleveland, Ohio, and this is my 3rd live event this week, but I forgot how much I like doing them. So, and I also, to be safe and not post a comment across 2 lines, just posted an emoji.
That's the big brain move right there when testing a platform. I had to be all clever and be like, yeah, let's be exciting and use words, and yeah, there you go, it backfired. Fantastic. Well, this month we are kind of carrying on the conversation from last month because we had to cut it a little bit shorter than I think some people in the comments wanted us to, around our relationship with technology. That's EdTech, that's non-EdTech. We'll talk about some updates this month. And maybe some news stories that have come up. I know you've got one, Heidi, that is interesting to discuss. But I thought we would kick things off with a couple of sort of quick news pieces that I've seen recently. Starting with Articulate has launched like an inbuilt accessibility tool, and everyone's very excited about it. And it tells you about all the problems that are going on inside your course when you go to publish it. And if you've used this or seen it, please do jump into the comments and let us know what you're thinking about it. I'm really torn. Not sure. Have you seen it at all yet, Heidi? Have you had a look? Or
I've not seen it. I've seen people post about it, but I try to stay the heck away from Articulate.
That's fair enough. I must admit, I find I use it less than I used to, but I quite like to kind of just occasionally log in and go, is anything broken? Because otherwise someone will ask me to use it and I'll go, oh yeah, I used it like 6 versions ago. Let's have a look and see what's changed. The thing that struck me about it was something is better than nothing when it comes to it. You know, it great. It's checking for a lot of sort of, are the navigation controls turned on? Is there alt text? Are there ARIA tags? All this sort of stuff, which is great. I have a slight concern in that, for instance, it says, oh, we'll check all your stuff. And there is a little message going, automated checking should not be trusted and blah, blah, blah. You should then check it yourself, which is the message you put there because no one is ever going to do that.
Yeah.
The issue then becomes like, it doesn't look for color contrast. Either just where you've defined it or for images. It really only looks for, the alt text, the tab order. Even then the tab order one is questionable. The question I kind of had off the back of it is like, something's better than nothing. 100% on board with that. When it comes to automating or semi-automating accessibility checks, where's the line for good enough? Because usually I'm pretty comfortable with hey, something's better than nothing and humans can pick up the slack. But this is an area where we already, and I'm going to generalize here, kind of suck. Like the fact that it's 2025 and we're still going, make sure you check your color contrast and make sure you've got alt text. That should be so ingrained that we don't have to say it, but we do. So that's all right. So like from your mind, what would you be looking for in that space when we talk about automating, whether it's AI or not? Like, at what point is it helpful, and at what point is it actually more of a risk to someone just relying on it when it's not good enough?
I think my first question is, did Articulate release new accessibility features to accompany this checklist? Because they have some serious limitations when it comes to accessibility, so much so that my team had to stop using the product because we could not, without extra manpower, woman power, people power on our part, we could not get it to do what we needed in terms of accessibility, especially in customer education, where we don't know what our learners' issues or temporary disabilities or permanent disabilities or obstacles are. We had to design for everyone. and it wasn't up to par. So, and I'm not surprised that you say it doesn't have color contrast, because one of my biggest gripes about Articulate Rise is that when you, and I've probably said this on here before, but I feel like I will repeat it to anyone who will listen, that when you set the theme in Articulate Rise to white, and check the box that says make automatic adjustments for color contrast, it doesn't do it across the board. It does it for headings, but every single hyperlink in your entire Rise course becomes white on a white background. Invisible ink. And there's no way around it unless you manually change the color of every hyperlink or use a different theme color, right? So I think we're getting to the point, I think we're getting to this lovely enshittification stage of AI where people are just slapping it on everything and going, look, we did a thing. Hey, you guys have been complaining about our accessibility for years. So we did this thing for you. And there you go. Aren't we awesome?
Yeah, it's like the thing that struck me was that and this is why I was really torn. Like, I actually really like the idea of like assistive technology for us as content creators to make our content more accessible. I really like that. We recently did a LinkedIn poll on kind of a similar question around like, what's the blocker? Is it the technology? Is it our knowledge? Is it our ability to apply? Is it something else? Got a real strong mix of the first three, few people kind of being specific and going for the last one, which is great. So it kind of highlighted that we have both technological issues, like even within just storyline. There are the technological issues of, for instance, drag and drops are just horrendously inaccessible.
Yeah.
Then we've got our lack of knowledge, i.e., do we know drag and drops are inaccessible?
Yes.
And then how do we build things that are accessible is the application. If we're falling down on all three, then we've got I think a pretty good case for saying we need a technological assistant to point that out to us, because people are not doing a good job, and sadly we can't just like get a few good people like Susie Miller and like copy and paste her all over the world. That's not going to work. There's a book, of course, but clearly that's not, there's not enough of us with that on the desk going, right, I need to check this, check that, which again is understandable. So I'm very much pro a technological assistant, but I don't quite understand the point of a technological assistant that has pretty significant like gaps in what it's able to support you with, which I don't think there should be. Like, it's not difficult to kind of color grab off a screen and compare contrast. Like, that's fairly basic, I would suggest. And then knowingly have non-accessible components in your sort of authoring tool. If you know your drag and drops are completely inaccessible, why start with an accessibility assistant and not fixing your drag and drops, for just as an example? And I don't know what the answer to that is, as to, it might be a business reason, whatever, but I wonder if it's a snazzier feature than, hey, we've made this accessible. Oh no, we've given you an automatic assistant to tell you it's not accessible. Is that the sort of argument?
Yeah, well, I think the other problem too is that we've seen the prioritization of flashy, snazzy features over features that people have been asking for a really long time, specifically with Articulate, but with other L&D tools as well, right? And I think one of the issues is, like, I remember there's been complaints about accessibility for years with the tools that we use. And I remember one of the things that people were kind of going wild over was being able to add background music to your courses. Yeah. And I was like, we're going to do the opposite of accessibility. We're going to do the exact opposite of accessibility. And I have since been shouting from the rooftops to anyone who will listen, because we're not training new instructional designers in these skills to know that me as a neurodivergent adult, I cannot hear what you are saying word-wise, narration-wise. I cannot read what is on the screen when there's music playing. My brain cannot, it won't do it. All I do is listen to the tune, and I go off into if it's a epic tune, I go off into the Shire. If it's, I listen to the music, I don't listen to the words, right?
Yeah.
And I think by prioritizing these features that they think are flashy, that they think are going to sell better, that they think are going to sell more, it really just shows that there's a serious lack of concern. And I see this across the educational technology industry, serious lack of concern for the practitioners.
Mm.
And that there's obviously profits are important. Obviously business is important, but I really, really strongly believe that there's a way to go about it where you can be proactive, where you can be attractive to the end users and the practitioners using your tool, but also be responsible and make it a tool that we can actually use and use well and use efficiently. Because what it does right now is it makes us less efficient than other people in other departments in our organization.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was chatting with a marketing consultant earlier this week about email campaigns, Joy, and the topic of accessibility came up. So I've never really looked into the accessibility functionality included in all these kind of emailing platforms like MailChimp and MailerLite and all those kinds of things. And he was kind of surprised. He was like, "Why would any of them not be accessible?" It was so, I think, just like, well, of course they are. Like, how could they not be? Like, we wouldn't be able to use them if they weren't. It's like, holy, are we that far out? And
yes,
yeah, like it was such a genuine. At the first time, oh, he's playing it up. He's like, I genuinely don't get it. Like, are some of your tools not? Do they not? Is everything just not accessible? I was like, no, almost nothing is. Like it's bizarre. So I kind of get that we are we I'm sure we're not the only outlier. Like there are,
No.
I mean, if anyone's ever tried to use a screen reader whilst navigating Mac OS, you will realize that some companies really could not care less about the fact that you need support. But I don't know. It feels strange that we're the outlier, considering there are few industries as vocal about the importance of accessibility.
Yeah.
Which it does seem at odds with, one, what we're willing to buy, what we're willing to use, but also when people then go into the vendor space, and it is more complicated than we often think. Like I would caveat that, having crossed over and worked on that product side, it is not as easy as just make it accessible. That is potentially a lot of work.
Yeah.
But clearly we're not prioritizing that work.
Right. And we're prioritizing other things.
Yes, quite. 360-degree videos. It's a good example. It's not just a storyline problem. I use that example a lot. But I mean, there you go. I was delivering training on the Evolve authoring tool. Love Evolve, cracking authoring tool. But I have to give people a long list of things they can't use because they are inaccessible.
Sure.
I have to provide a PDF saying, do not use these pieces of functionality in this platform, because if you do, you cannot produce an accessible experience.
Yeah.
That's like, why are they there? Why are they on the platform?
Right.
It's a little odd. If you've got any thoughts, please do let us know in the comments, because I don't know. It feels like we're kind of going in circles as an industry on that conversation.
Yeah.
All agreeing that it's super important, and then all kind of collectively doing very little.
Right. Or talking about it, or like we'll talk about it, we'll learn about it, we'll say, okay, like I'm gonna do this in my company or with my team or whatever, and then kind of we kind of hit that first obstacle, and time is not on our side and budget is not on our side, and we just go, all right, well, if we have to cut one thing, let's cut accessibility. Which is awful.
Yeah, it is. And Phil brings up an interesting point about the WCAG guidelines changing.
Yeah.
It's tricky, right? Because obviously we're 2. I think now we've officially moved to 2.2. 3's in draft, but 3's a long way off, I think. 2.2 was in draft for like 3 years, something like that.
Yeah.
and they are complicated, but they're written. I suppose they're written for web developers. That's the thing,
right?
But I don't know. I feel like we've got enough communicators in the space. There are people with expertise that, if we want to get it right, we can go to. Like, I use Susie Miller as an example, but there are others. What was that book came out recently? Design for All Learners or something? Yeah, Design for All Learners by Sarah Mercer. Great book. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of advice, a lot of books, a lot of good people out there, but something seems to be going wrong with the tools themselves, and the focus being on the clever, the showy accessibility and not the functional accessibility, I guess, would be
right. And I know we harp a lot on Articulate, but I think it's just a really good example of enshittification, which I've been reading up on a lot lately and looking into a lot lately, because it's specifically, if you're not familiar with the term, it's basically when somebody gets to the top of their market, of their tiny little corner of wherever it is, they go, well, we've made it and we don't really have to do much else because everybody's still going to use us anyway. A really good example is LinkedIn. If you've seen LinkedIn's newsfeed lately, yikes. It's I think we see it with other places and other tools, like Google search is getting a lot of flack for it right now because the things that are coming up first are really unhelpful. There's, the AI answers that are sometimes just really confidently wrong. And so I think we're now seeing this on a microcosmic level with Articulate saying, well, everybody uses us. And people literally will say, I wish I could use something else, but it's the only game in town, basically,
Yeah. And I mean, we see this everywhere, right? We mentioned before about the danger of like consolidation in tech companies. Wherever there's consolidation, wherever there's less competition, there is less innovation. That's just an inherent truth. There's no need to innovate. There's no need to improve your product if you're the only game in town. We see it with Adobe. Look at everything going on at Adobe right now is because they're like, what else are you going to use? Realistically, what else are you going to use? There are loads of other options, but no one else offers a kind of, you pay this fee, you get everything. And their software is also the best at what it does. It may have problems, but all software does.
Sure.
And it's interesting. I still remember when Storyline 3 came out. And it was a big jump forwards for authoring tools. Like, it earned its place back then. It was innovative. It was helpful. It listened to users. It can be done, I guess, is the,
Yeah, absolutely.
But hey, such is, I suspect, all tech companies ultimately. But well, I suppose that kind of, I thought it was an interesting place to start when we talk about our relationship with technology. But you also had a bit of a news story yourself, didn't you, Heidi? You mentioned it before we just started.
Yes. So there was I don't know what the original back and forth was, but I saw the news story that came out today that said the lawsuit has been approved to move forward. And that lawsuit is a class action lawsuit against Workday for Workday AI that they were using for recruiting. And there was a gentleman who submitted over 100 applications through Workday to different companies, which, first of all, I just want to point out this guy's tenacity, because if you've ever filled out a job application through Workday, you have to do a whole ass profile for every different company, new password, new info, So props to him, first of all, for going through that over 100 times. Most people give up after 5. I know I do. If I see that Workday interface, I'm like, well, the job's not that important. Let's move on. But he was getting almost instant rejections from across the board, right? And he's over 40, and he noticed that he had to put his age in, or his birth date, as part of his profile. And I think there's something here. And so after some digging, they found that Workday's AI was being was being discriminatory against older people, Black people, and there was another group of people, and I can't remember. But, just your basic, typical marginalized groups, we like automatic rejections. And so he started a class action lawsuit, and they tried to block it. And the judge said, no, it can move forward. And I think one of the interesting things that yes, we're not in recruiting, but I think one of the interesting things that it begs is something that I've been talking with people in the industry about a lot lately, which is this: when AI messes up, who's in trouble when you're using it in the workplace,
It is seriously interesting. And I kind of joked that I was like, I suspect the two phrases AI and lawsuit are going to become very tightly associated over the next few years. I think that's just, it's kind of just bound to happen at this point. And some of it will be very grey area, and it'll be because it's new, right? So that often new stuff ends up in the legal system because we have to figure out where are the new societal boundaries of how we use something, what's okay, what's not. This is, to my mind, this is once again a human failing. Because I think that everyone, there will be a movement to blame this on a rogue AI and say, well, it was technology. We will adjust the technology. We will do this. We will do that. We'll fix it for the future. AI should not be involved in screening job applications. A human being decided they were going to use AI to screen job applications. And they clearly weren't confident enough in that decision being okay to tell people that. Like, that's always very, very revealing. Stuff that openly says, hey, this uses AI. I am much more comfortable with that because I know what I'm doing.
Yes. Yeah, that's really true.
When I discover something is AI later, that's not good. Like that's a bad look, and usually it tends to be because they know it's going to be a bad look, right? Who would willingly say, hey, apply for this job? You'll be screened by an AI, but if you make it past that, we'll have a chat with you. That's right? Insane.
Well, and then I was talking to another colleague in the industry who was saying they saw a demo of a product where, it was like a leadership chatbot, right? And it's one of those where it lets you practice with the chatbot. But this particular one made an avatar of the employee and used the employee's likeness and looked at all of the transcripts from all the one-on-one meetings that the employees had with with their managers, because it's trying to collect data, right? So it's trying to collect this data and say, like, here's how you should react in this situation. Here's how you should talk in this performance review. But what are the implications of my company making an avatar of me so that my shitty manager can practice talking to me because they can't actually talk to me for real? Like, what are we doing? And then we look at, I've literally seen email threads that are all AI, no human being, right? Where a manager is mad about something and emails a team member, and it's clearly AI written. And then the team member responds with an AI written response because it's a contentious issue, right? It's a tough conversation. And so what the hell are we doing? We're not even talking to each other anymore. We're not even having the conversation ourselves. Like, what's the point? And can I sue my company if they use my likeness, for this kind of employee training? Because I don't consent to that, right?
It is fascinating. I've just shared a link to a news article relating to the lawsuit. I also shared an article that landed in my inbox this morning entitled AI Makes Bad Managers. Which is basically just laying into this concept of managers, as they put it, gleefully sharing their best prompts to have ChatGPT write performance assessments.
Yes.
And I've seen a bit of this on, of course, LinkedIn, but also in other places and in conversations that I've been in where people have gone, oh, I've got to give someone their annual review. What prompt would you use? And it's like, how are we that open and comfortable with the idea of going, I don't need to be a manager anymore. I just need to tell ChatGPT to tell people whether or not they're good at their job. It's very worrying how quickly we've gone from all AI to how much of myself can I hand over to this thing?
Yes. Well, and I think the other thing too is at what point will companies go, why do I have managers when I could just have AI do this? Remove the middle management layer. How much money would that save companies?
Yeah. I mean, that was always the slashing point before, wasn't it? Sort of in the when you look back on kind of whenever they're like the last big recession, middle management just ceased to exist. All these companies just swept through these leadership teams, and they've kind of crept back in, some necessary, some not, I guess. But this is kind of like, I don't know, they also seem very quick to embrace it. And like, I'm going to be somewhat linear. I don't care so much about the individual risk to like their role, because that's a relatively small, in societally speaking, it's a small risk.
Sure.
It's important to them as individuals, of course. Every job is important. Every person's important. Yada yada yada. Just covering myself there. But that's less where my concern lies. My concern actually lies with the fact that so much of your potential in your career is defined by the managers you have early in your career. How they support you, how they develop you. If that is going to be dictated by what is literally the average, ChatGPT or an AI's job is to guess the most statistically likely response. So you are just going to get the bare average delivered back to you. That means no one will ever again be sat there going, I'm so thankful to this manager who I had at just the right time, who gave me this push or gave me this challenge, blah, blah, blah. That will cease to exist. And that will screw over the entire workforce for generations. Because once that skill set is lost, how do we get it back? Once there are no good managers, how do we get new good managers? Because that is a skill that generally gets taught person to person. It's if you've ever tried to train management training, I always look at it, that is effective management training is really tough. It's such a human thing. That's where my worry lies there.
Yeah. And I think we'll still see good managers that don't use AI, right? Like that gives me hope that probably my best managers that I had when I was a newbie are not using AI for critical conversations, right? And, but I think one good point that was raised when I was having this conversation with a friend was that, let's say, for instance, the manager takes the advice of this chatbot, right? Like has the fake conversation, takes the advice of the chatbot, and it goes horribly wrong. Who's at fault? Is it the manager or is it the company that let the manager use AI to manage without any sort of oversight? Right? And then I don't know about you, but I leave voice memos to my friends. I guess this is like a very millennial way to communicate, so I'm told. But like we leave each other little voice notes all day long, right? Because it's very easy to not have to sit there on the phone. You can just record a quick 5 minutes, shoot it off. Your friend can listen to it whenever they need to, and then send you something back. And so something that I struggle with is who I've told which story, because I'm not actually hearing their verbal response or seeing their like nonverbal response to me telling the story. So I'm like, did I tell you this or didn't I? And so I think if you're using a realistic AI employee and you're having these conversations, are you going to start forgetting whether you told your real employees this or your fake ones? Because I know I probably would.
This is I don't know. I feel like there are elements of this that I'm really excited about. Like I've really come around to quite like the idea of these kind of highly personalized individual assistants that everyone in your business could have, like the go-to whoever. You can give it like having Siri, but work specific. I mean, Siri sucks, but if Siri was good, If Siri did what they promised it would do for the world, and you could give it the name that you want to give it or whatever, though I would be the person going, I'm just going to have to call it computer. They're just sitting there going, computer, how do I do this? Make me very happy. But I worry now that does that go hand in hand with this? Can we have one without the other? Because technologically, of course, yes, we can. But will businesses go, oh, that's enough? Or will they want to go one step further? Will they want to say, hey, we'll just automate the contact center with an AI instead? And then how bad does it have to get before they realize that's a huge mistake? And then where does that workforce then come from? Because they've just said, we do not value you. We do not value human beings in this role. We will replace you first chance we get. Who then is going to take that job when they inevitably have to rehire for it? I feel for the HR and recruitment team that have to find them, and I feel for the managers and the L&D team that are supposed to somehow retain them. Why on earth would you want to or stay in that job?
Right. And I think it's similar to what we saw when here in the US jobs started to be outsourced, like pretty heavily, right? Like with, internet and global capabilities, like as those grew, it was much, much easier to outsource across the world, right? With remote workplace, especially. And I think we're seeing kind of a similar thing where people are like, oh, so you don't really want me. And I know one of my good friends works for a financial institution where people all around her are being laid off and replaced with AI for things like risk management. And these are like, this is a bank that anyone in the US will know if I said the name of it, right? And they are doing this to people. And so if you're one of the are they lucky? Are they unlucky? I don't know. One's left still working at that workplace, how long until the writing's on the wall for you?
It's I don't know. It feels like at the minute we've reached this what I think is very interesting point. Like if you step back at it and look at it purely as an abstraction, it's fascinating to see again how quickly we've gone from scary to could it take over literally all my responsibilities in life? Yes. Except it's not usually my responsibilities. It's could it get rid of all these people I view as somehow less skilled than I? Because obviously my skills could never be replaced, but theirs probably could. It's fascinating how quickly that shift has happened. And how quickly we've got to a place where being anti-AI, I think, is a mistake. We've questioning, being very concerned about things is almost like seen as like, oh no, you need to get on board. It's like being concerned is not saying we should stop. I'm not saying slam the brakes. There's no slamming the brakes on. That's not how technology works. We all know this, but I think we abandon that concern at our peril. Especially in our space, though. I think we should be, and I'm not talking about like hysterical concern about we're going to all lose our jobs tomorrow, or it's not the extremes. It's just the carefully considering what the implications of this are beyond the great. I can now write twice as many courses. I mean, great, I guess, whatever. But what's that actually doing to us? Is that helpful assistance? I mean, going right back to start with the accessibility thing. Such an opportunity for a new world where you cannot create accessible content. When people, I think someone asked in the chat, actually, do I have a list of things that I want from Articulate? Kind of just that one thing. It should be impossible for me to publish inaccessible content. It shouldn't be doable. That technologically is inherently, it's very doable. It's complicated, but it's doable.
It is complicated.
And I'm not saying that I expect someone to work on it over the weekend and publish it on Monday, but from the biggest, by far wealthiest player in the space, I don't think it's unreasonable to say anytime I click that publish button, it should be accessible.
Agreed.
And what a license is about 1,200 quid a year-ish. plus 250 for the AI stuff. I think that's the kind of price tag where that's not an unreasonable ask.
Correct, especially because there are no monthly subscriptions, and you have to buy annually. You can bake that into the cost very easily.
I would argue so. So yeah, that's kind of why that to me is the level of challenge we should have for these tools. Is if these tools are so great, so impressive, and so expensive. Because I think that's the thing. Like in our heads, when we think about AI and price tags, we think about £29 a month for ChatGPT. Your business ain't paying £29 a month for ChatGPT. It's big bills we're talking about now.
Yeah.
We're talking about custom APIs, which are cheap on a per token basis, but you're sending thousands of tokens an hour. And you're talking serious spend now. You can expect a bit more. And I think argue that for that kind of money, if we had that kind of budget, would we be accepting, well, sometimes you just make stuff up? Like, if we said that about the human employees, what would happen?
Oh my goodness, right? Right? And I have met human employees that are as confidently wrong as ChatGPT is.
This is true. This is very true.
And we're dealing with a lot of that in the United States right now, confidently wrong people. I'll just leave it at that. But, I think you raised a really good point, not only just about the ethics, but also the sustainability, and not just from this point of view of, can we sustain this level of AI integration without scaring the workforce while retaining the workforce, but also a question of sustainability of the computing power necessary for your company to use that much of AI is massive. And, people want to put the blame all on us and the individual, right? Like, well, you shouldn't be making that image of that AI doll because it wastes so much water. And it's like, well, okay, yes. Like if we made less AI dolls, we would save some water, but it's nothing compared to what the companies are doing. And especially the companies who are creating the product. Like that should be on them. It should be their problem to figure out, not mine as somebody paying $20 a month for premium ChatGPT.
Yeah. I think these are very different things that we have to start factoring in when we talk about the cost of a product. Because obviously an LMS, an authoring tool, has some back-end data stuff in the cloud. It's not just the price you see in front of you. There is sort of ecological price and societal price to all these things, but not on this scale. And I don't think it's something we've ever really had to sort of reckon with. Like, I had an interesting chat earlier today with someone who works at a B Corp. They were just like, we're really concerned that if we try and use AI, can we really claim to be a B Corp? Like that, how can you? Well, don't worry, we plant trees and we do this and we don't fly places, but we do go to this data center here and use an AI. It's a bit like, oh, hang on, things that we said were really important to us, are they important enough for us to not use this new thing? It's going to open some very, very interesting questions, I think, for companies that have been very vocal about especially their ecological stuff, but also their kind of ethical stances. It's going to be very interesting to see how they navigate this stuff. And I think we will have to, but obviously it's lower risk for us. Like the relative ethics and morals of L&D are pretty bland, I would argue, and not really something that anyone ever discusses. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
Generally, because no one cares, which is fine. So, I guess moving on from that a little bit, then last time we touched on technology and skills. And specifically on kind of how technology is changing skills, how we're giving up some skills, keeping others. And I wanted to kind of touch on it again because we kind of timed ourselves out last time. And I wondered if you or if anyone in the chat's got any thoughts on where those areas of potential kind of skill degradation lie and which skills are worth us going, we could get an AI to do this, but we're going to choose not to. in order to
Mm.
retain the skill, not particularly for an ethical or moral reason, but just because it's not a skill we want to give up.
I think for me, I already gave away my answer earlier in the conversation, that communication, human communication skills, right? Difficult conversations. Like, there's something to be said for, if your employee is not doing what they're supposed to be, you coming to them and not just being accusatory and threatening to fire them and doing like the AI, like, get them, right? Because, you know, the thing about AI is that it always wants you to be so happy with how it answers, right? Like, it is there to serve you. And if you're upset about an employee that you feel might be taking time or wasting time, and you go, I gotta tell this employee that they're wasting time, ChatGPT is going to roll out something like nasty and threatening and intimidating, right? And you're now losing the skill to be able to confront somebody in a healthy way that not only recognizes the human, but maybe your employee is slacking because their partner has cancer. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to lose the empathy if we keep offloading communication onto these tools. Use it for your calendar scheduling. Use it for your, reports that you have to send. Use it for like the bullshit, what I call the administrative bullshit, right? But we have to stop using it for human connection, because it's not human. It's just not.
Yeah, do you know, it's fascinating because I've used one of those tools for moving around my calendar quite a lot. That will look at my calendar and say, hey, this is a bit of a mess. Let's move this meeting to here. I've emailed them and said this needs to be moved to next week because it's not a priority meeting, all this kind of stuff. I've had to stop using it because it had a really nasty tendency of any 15-minute call with someone on an internal evolved domain, it would deprioritize. It would look and say, you're not a customer, you're not a prospect, you're not something event related. You're an internal person booking a very short period of time. If there were, we ended up doing some experimentation, and basically it seemed to be looking for things like just need 5 minutes of your time, or just want to have a quick catch up, whatever situation, deprioritized. Because from an AI work efficiency perspective, these annoying short calls should be all grouped together and dumped on the same day. So that all the, can I just have 5 minutes of your time? I just do on a Thursday afternoon with everyone in the business, is like, that just shows that, like, it's doing exactly what it has been told to do. It is looking at my calendar and looking for efficiencies and trying to protect my time and to ensure that I can do periods of focused work. But because it doesn't really understand human beings and the nuance of communication between human beings, it cannot understand that by condensing those and putting them all together, it strips them of all their value.
Yeah.
It was just a really kind of moment for me. I was like, well, this tool's going in the bin, because the value it does bring is totally cancelled out by the potential damage that does within our team. It's a really interesting thing for me, where it's like, I hate managing my calendar, but at least I'll do it well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's not so much the skills that we want. I think there's nuance to the boring stuff that we sometimes don't realize because we're so used to doing it. Basic email responses. Like, again, for a while, I played with having the AI do those, and I found it really stressed me out. I was going into my sent folder each morning and seeing what it had sent out the day before. I was like, this is not saving me any time.
Yeah.
Because even though it never made like a big mistake or anything, but I just wasn't like, what if it misread something? It doesn't misread. What if it misinterprets something and responds with something way off base? For me, in the end, it was more stress than it was thing. So 2 jobs I do not want to do: respond to emails and manage my calendar. But the alternative is to have it done like perfectly on a technical level, but lack humanity, and therefore, in my view, not as well. So I think some of the choice here might end up being comfort and or the real effectiveness versus what we want to hold on to. Because I don't know, that's a bit of a funny one.
That makes sense.
Agree. Oh yeah, so we got Bunny here. Agree. We lose a lot of soft skills we manage with AI. Yeah, and it's tricky, right? Because I would love to see a space where AI was supporting managers to become better managers.
Of course, yeah.
But I'm at the minute, every time I think, oh, maybe that's the way, there seems to be like a really big problem.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what that would look like, if I'm honest at this point. Like, is it that assistant where it's just like highly specific questions? I wonder if sometimes we're trying to get too much out of these tools. Where it's like, oh, it'll adopt the persona of the person, and you can test coaching ideas on them and that kind of thing. Are we just asking too much of the technology where it is today?
Yeah.
It's awesome, but I wonder if we are at that point where, because it seems to be so intelligent, are we now getting ahead of where it's actually at? I mean, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, well, and then Lori Niles Hoffman had that great post this past week, or maybe it was the week before, about, do our chat agents have the right skills? And who is that going to fall on? I wonder, maybe a little bit of IT, but making sure that the chat agents that we're using have the right skills, have the right information, have the right data about our culture. That's probably a joint effort between IT and L&D, right?
Yeah. I've dropped a link to Laurie's account, because if you don't already follow her, you should. Yes. The conversations are in the comments of her posts are very interesting. Like really high challenge, which I think is what we need in this environment, to really kind of get us thinking about this stuff. I think this is going to be one of those times where our lack of experience when it comes to working with, like, truly working cross-functionally. I don't mean going to someone and asking them to be an SME. I mean actually working hand in hand for a prolonged, ongoing basis. We're not very good at that. I've always think like we've got a little bit of like a, maybe it's because we spent so long being a part of HR or not being taken so seriously. We've got a bit of an ownership complex. Like, yes, it has to be ours. Mm-hmm. It's an L&D project. We own the LMS. We own learning. We own whatever in the business. And it's like, as long as we have that mentality, I don't think we will ever do well with AI.
We won't. No.
Which is difficult, shall we say.
Yeah. We'll just keep making dolls and babies if that's the case.
Well, what else could AI be for? That's I've really struggled with that when that whole thing took off as like a thing. Like, part of me was like, people are excited about technology. People want to try technology. I get it. But once we were in week 2, part of me seemed like, cool, we've tried it. Could we try and steer this towards something useful now? It's like, no, week 3 of dolls, and it's like, oh, really?
And dolls just changed into babies.
This is it. But then after this, of course, comes the week or so of, here's the instructions on how to do it. It's like, oh, for God's sake, do we really need to? Yeah. It's a bit like the whole, we need to train people on how to use LLMs. It's like, if we have to train people, it's a bad LLM. That's the whole point.
Correct. Yes.
It's supposed to be conversational. That was the whole point of this technology.
Yeah, and I get that it's trendy, and I get that people like to have fun with it, but the thing that I keep bringing up is that if you are using AI to have fun, and you work in the L&D industry, and you have a public profile that people see, and they interact with your posts, I feel very strongly that you have a responsibility to say, hey, I'm just playing here, or I'm just having fun, because if you don't, what you communicate to brand new people to the industry or to the field is that this is what we do all day. This is what you can expect from an instructional designer role, right? Because I see not just like, and not specifically like the doll trend, because I think that's pretty obvious that that's not what we do. But some of like the image generation I've seen, or the look at this cool movie poster I made for my upcoming training. And it's like, I think people are getting the wrong idea. They're reducing what we do down to aesthetics and playing. And it's going to have a lasting, long negative effect on our industry if we're not more careful about it.
So, linked to that, I want to almost go back a little bit on the okay, our relationship with tech. There we are. We're in our last 10 minutes of the show. We'll get to the topic. We've kind of been on topic the whole time for once, actually. That's quite impressive.
Absolutely.
So if you've got a question, by the way, now is the time to throw it in there because we're into the last 9 minutes now. So I'll stop blabbering on. But
and we do have a question that was submitted ahead of time, by the way.
We do, yes.
Okay, I don't want to forget about it. I have it written down.
Got it written down. You're brilliant.
Yes.
You have. So I totally forgot, so I'd have to go and find it.
Yes.
So my quick question there was going to be, when we're seeing then the kind of implementation of a lot of the AI stuff into platforms, probably the most common implementation is upload your content in whatever, the stuff the SME gave you. We will then go sort, and write a course and give you section and blah, 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 blah. Do you think that falls into the category? Is that useful to us? In terms of real work, is an L&D professional using that? Because I can't decide because I could see someone using it, but the first time I was like, oh, should I do it? I was like, no, of course I won't. That'd be a terrible idea. Like it just didn't even cross my mind to consider using this functionality. But is that just me? And I don't know what the answer is. I'm wondering if you've got any thoughts, or if you've got thoughts in the chat as well about if that's functionality you would use.
I also feel torn there because I think a lot is lost when we leave some of when we leave some of the big things to a tool, right? And I think one of my pet peeves being in the workplace and just in my personal life in general is rework, right? Like I absolutely despise having to redo something because I either didn't take the time to do it right in the first place, or because the output was so shitty that well, this didn't work. Now I have to redo it, right? Either because of a knowledge gap on my end or whatever. But I think that we exponentially increase the risk of rework when we kind of offload to functionality like that, right? I have seen some really, really cool tools that will pull together really cool videos or really cool summaries or, but also the input has to be good. And we struggle with that. We really struggle with that because I've met a lot of people in L&D who don't have foundational skills around adult learning science, performance improvement, things that would be required, right? If Guy Wallace is taking something and putting it into that functionality, he's probably going to get something pretty good out of it, right? But if somebody fresh out of grad school who has predominantly focused on learning the tools and not the theory, it's probably not going to be as good. So I don't know. I'm torn.
Yeah. I'm always slightly concerned about being not a fan of a tool because it's a bit of the process I like. So I really enjoy information architecture and things like that. So part of me is I know that that's the bit of the process I like. So I inherently don't want to hand it over to a thing. That's a part of it. But I don't know, what I've seen is it's not been sufficiently impressive to make it even a more effective / efficient approach, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think it lacks reliability. I think that's the problem for me, right? It's not consistent enough across the board. It really lacks reliability.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's my question. So we had a question come in ahead of time, which is lovely.
Yes.
Heidi, talk us through
and it is, what do you think is the future of the LMS?
Near future or far future? I guess is the question.
Ooh, let's do both.
Near future, I'm not sure how much is actually going to change in the near future. And by near future, I mean the next like 1 to 5 years.
Yeah, I agree.
Like stuff, quote unquote, will change. New features will be released. There'll be more AI stuff. I hope they will gradually become more and more lightweight. I have a feeling they might become more specific. I think we might see the slow death of the we do everything and have a kitchen sink and a toaster attached style platform. We might see platforms that are like, no, if you're doing I don't know, like an agile skills focused workforce, these are the platforms. If you're doing if your workforce is salespeople and you're doing sales enablement, these are the platforms you want. That's my hope, because the do it alls are just do it badlies.
Yes, agreed.
I don't think there is a platform that does everything well. I don't think it could. It's too much. It's too many variables involved. So that would be my hope. The more features, more AI is not so much a hope. It's just, I think, a reality. But I think the narrowing of focus, I think, would be my hope for the next 5 years. What about you, Heidi?
I think that's good. I think you're right. I don't think there's going to be much change in the next 1 to 5 years. And I'm going to be really brutally honest as to why. I think we're too busy arguing still about LMS versus LXP. And we are so freaking past that conversation. And I agree with Mike in the comments that SCORM needs to just go away. SCORM is not helping us. It's not helping anybody. And I think my optimistic hope is that we can start moving, kind of like you're saying, more specifically, but more across the L&D board of having tech stacks. We have a tool that we use to make training and a tool that we use to implement it, and that's it. And other teams like marketing, they're using oh, here's our email software, and here's our video platform software, and here's our content creation software. And they have a tech stack. And we're really lacking on that. And the companies that I've worked at, where I've worked in customer education over ID teams, it's been a lot stackier. That's not a real word, but we're going to go with it. It's been a lot stackier.
And the thing, so there's I think marketing is a good example of this. It's all linked together. These are not standalone, or they are standalone tools, but they have cleverly linked them. They have built an architecture for their stack. It's not just we have 6 products. It's we have 6 products that all seamlessly interconnect, reporting on each other, gathering data, giving us a workflow that works, that is effective and efficient. Whereas we are still relying on a SCORM, an XAPI, an AIICC, or whatever it is, the one that came before SCORM, which you can still export your stuff as, which tells us a lot. Beyond 5 years, though, I reckon in 10 years' time, they won't be a thing anymore.
Yeah, I think not in the current way that they are. I know that there are some tech CEOs out there who annoy the hell out of me, who are trying to kill them by rumor right now, which is really weird and awkward.
Yeah.
Like saying the LMS is dead. I talked to 5 different companies who are not using an LMS anymore. But I think
that's it. The game's over.
Right. Trending. But I think to Mike's point, SCORM is not everyone. No, people are holding on to it, and the reasons they're holding on to it, because I've asked this question of multiple people, and they'll say, well, because it's the most portable format. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Have you ever heard of PDF, MP3, MP4, WAV files? Just don't talk about something if you don't understand what you're talking about, first of all. And I think that we are just at a point where the metrics we're getting from SCORM don't matter to anybody, let alone us.
Yeah, this is it. And I think the problem is not inherent to SCORM. It's just unnecessary. It's an unnecessary in the modern world. It's an unnecessarily cumbersome way of reporting on this stuff.
Yes.
Same with XAPI. XAPI hasn't caught on, not because it isn't cool. It's really cool, but it's not necessary. Like, I shouldn't need to
No.
be thinking about an LRS and webhooks and JavaScript and blah blah blah. I don't.
No.
When I write an email newsletter and I can see exactly who hovered over what and who clicked on what and how long they were there and what they typed and where they went and their journey through my website from the newsletter and everything they clicked through the website, none of that requires XAPI. None of that requires any work on my part.
But you can also attach that to your LMS through regular API.
This is it, which is so much simpler and more reliable. Like,
correct.
It's just, I think this partially goes back to this. We have to have our own thing.
Yes.
We can't be like literally the rest of the planet when it comes to reporting on tech. We have to have our own special standards.
Yes.
And I get that used to be the case. We had very specific needs, etc. But it's not anymore. We got to let go. And that then frees us. Once we stop using that frees us from having to have a set platform. Then we can just say, where's this most useful? Oh, well, in the dashboard, they're doing the working. Cool. Put a link to it there. What about reporting? It'll show up on some dashboard somewhere. It doesn't matter. You know, I do see probably 10 years away, but I see a future where no user ever logs into the LMS. They would have no idea what the LMS was.
Yeah. And I think that doesn't mean that there's not a place where learning has to live. Right? I just think that it won't be in our own little secret corner, in our little hidey hole that we have stockpiled.
Yeah, absolutely. And equally, then it means, I think, more importantly, it's even if it technically lives in one place, no one has to complete it in that one place. I can complete it anywhere I want. The data maybe just lives in a single place.
Sure.
So we're moving to maybe more of a headless type situation. Yeah. Whether or not the current thing of headless LMSs and LXPs are the way forwards, I don't know. They might be. They're really cool. But yeah, I do think that would be the future I would hope for. And I think it's doable. I think the signs are there that it might happen. Yeah. But yeah, it's not going to happen by LMS. The LMS is dead articles. I always joke. I wrote a SCORM is dead article about 8 years ago. Whoops. It's gone nowhere. If anything, it's being used more now than it ever was.
Yeah.
But hey,
it's okay. Wishful thinking.
Absolutely. Well, look, thank you everyone who's been so active in the comments and getting involved. And the recording of this will be available on the Instructional Design Tips YouTube channel straight away. It'll be there for your perusing pleasure. If you want to recap any of the magical moments of today's discussion. But we will be back next month. And very exciting, next month, I will finally have pulled my finger out and got the titles sorted. Our new virtual studio sorted. If you remember the old ID update, there was a theme tune and there was an intro video, and now we'll have that again. There may even be some explosions for different segments of the show.
Nice.
You can't.
We got Michael Bay Michael Bay of L&D over here.
Yeah. Well, let's temper that. But yeah. But that will be there for next month. So yeah, thank you all for getting involved, sharing your thoughts, asking questions. If there is stuff you want to see covered in a future show, let us know. Get in touch. We would love to hear from you. Heidi, is there anything you would like to leave everyone with for the end of today's show, for the month we're going into?
Just be careful what you put into AI. I think that's the overall message here. Just watch yourself.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you for joining me again this month. We will see you all at the end of June. It'll be halfway through the year. Have a great month. See you then.
It's so weird when it's still going on LinkedIn, but we're done. The delay trips me out.
I'm just making sure that is the case.
No, we're still live. So everyone's going to hear me say that.